So nice to actually meet you. I've read your
Yes,
book. I've enjoyed, our interactions.
absolutely.
Where I would like to begin, if it's okay,
Yes.
is what was your time with Bhanté Dharmawara like? What was your experience, personal experience
All right.
of him?
Thank you. The first experience I had with him was meeting him in Alaska, of course, which is where I'm from. And then I was able to attend his one and only course of intensive Vipassana meditation and holistic healing studies in India. I had the opportunity of staying about a month with him in London, and then we drove to India and attended the course. The course was an intensive meditation course, studies in healing, and from that
Was
point
this
of
at a
view,
show commission?
yes, that is correct.
Yes. Okay. So you
Yes,
drove more or less from Europe all the way to India, right?
that is correct, and that's detailed
Wow.
more in my book, as you
Yeah.
know. Um, and yes, met in London, took the ferry from Dover to Calais, France, and then we drove two caravans. We call, a VW bus and a Mercedes van. There
Right.
were, and Bunty was in that group, so he rode with us all the way to the border of Pakistan, Afghanistan. And
Wow.
at that time, he didn't hold a visa for Pakistan and had to fly into India. So that is how the course really began on that journey of getting to know people that we would be intensively meditating and learning to basically survive together on the course in India. From that point, after the meditation course, I returned to Alaska. And throughout many, many years, I was able to be associated with him to varying degrees. He came up about once a year to Alaska, and I was able to tend to his needs, cook for him when he was there. A couple of times in California, working to get meditation healing institutes together. I was able to be with him. My family and I were able to be with him. Things such as that. So we began our journey with Bhante in India under the Vipassana meditation, and that is
Yes,
where Bhante.
you've used that term several times.
Yes,
For those who may not know what that means,
yes,
well, what is your understanding, or what do you think Vipassana
certainly.
means?
Vipassana, of course, translated means insight. What does insight mean is in the Theravada Buddhist tradition is the awakening of the heart as an organ of self-awareness and observation in order to interpret our existence as humans right now. So basically where we have in other traditions, in many traditions, they focus on the knowledge base, where Vipassana is based in the heart. And varying degrees of that heart knowledge comes through discipline and action. How's that?
Excellent. Thank you. That was very clear. Now, were you by chance involved with the two Vipassana courses that were held at Commonweal in Bolinas, California, or the ones in Asheville at Josh Reynolds' estate?
Yes, I attended the 10-day meditation course at Josh Reynolds' estate
Ah,
when I was on Claymant's fourth year.
yes, I
So,
understand.
yes, so I was there. I also cooked for the first course of 10-day meditation that Bundy conducted here in America in Ukiah, California,
Oh,
near Land of 10,000 Buddhas.
yes, near, but not at. Correct.
Not at,
Right.
correct.
Wow. This is bringing me back to very
Oh, I love
fond
it.
memories.
Yes,
Um, if I can ask something personal,
certainly.
how has your quality of life been benefited by your meditative practice?
Absolutely. I prefer to call it a discipline because in the Vipassana way, we have our sitting meditation, but we also have the awakened state of 24/7 observation. And that discipline is maintained throughout the life. It is a way of what it did for me is brought me to where I am now.
Yes.
And I never thought I'd be where I am to this day. Through the process, through the discipline, maintaining that standard of observation, one arrives at certain points in their life where there are challenges. When properly met, those challenges, might you say, receive a reward, and certain awarenesses are then enhanced, or we enter into greater awarenesses of our human existence. This is a Vipassana way, and this is what I love. Terasano Biko quotes as our warrior knowledge. Each one of us has to discover our own personal warrior knowledge. I would assume with you, Russ, it's the healing, it's the medicine, and all those wonderful things. For me, it is also my inspiration, my love for healing, and it's also my passion for sharing and encouraging others Vipassana, insight, insight, insight. From there, at 40 years old, I committed to celibacy at a spiritual level. So from that viewpoint, we go to different levels of understanding of how we work with our body, as you yourself understand, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a personal journey, one that we can speak of to everyone by being honest about who we are, where we began, and what we might become.
And I fully agree with what you just said. My experience of Bhante was mostly that he inspired me, he motivated me,
Absolutely.
he put me up short when I needed it.
Oh, yes. Yes.
And that Asheville course, I'll bet you don't remember that I was there because I was not part of the course. This actually happened. We're driving in. It's a long driveway, of course, but we're driving in, and Bhante turns to me and says, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I'm your student. I'm here to take the course." He says, "Oh, no, no, you're hopeless." He did. He said, "You're hopeless.
Yes.
You cannot take the course. I don't know why you are here." And then pause because I've
Yes.
got to assimilate what I just
Yes.
experienced. Pause. And then he says, "Well, I need cabin boy." Now, my parents had a small motel, so I know how to make a hospital corner on a bed. I know how to clean a latrine. There's much more to the story, but in essence, being his cabin boy, making
That's right.
ginger tea first in the
Yes,
morning,
that's
just
right.
being there, whatever I could
Yes.
do, whatever,
Yes.
was at least as profound as the other
Yes.
courses I took from him and through him.
Absolutely.
And at the very, very end, he said, "At least you showed up." Because there was a part of me that wanted to go back to NIH, where I was on the permanent senior staff, and continue with life.
Oh, yeah.
But he was unflappable. He was, in my experience,
Yes.
he always did what was in the best interest of the person before him.
Of all concerned,
Of
without
all
a doubt.
concerned. No one should lose. Everyone should win.
That's right. I have to agree. Totally 100%.
Well,
And
I think, do you remember, do you even know of the Bandung Conference? This was when the non-aligned nations under Nehru and Suharto and others got together to say, we don't want to be aligned with the West. We don't want to be aligned with the East. We want to be non-aligned.
yes. And did you, the only reason I think I know about is, didn't you mention it in your book?
Oh, I did. No, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
It's
That is where
very
I have
important
the knowledge.
that
Yeah.
he was so close to Nehru, who was really the leader of that non-aligned assembly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he helped write the
I
conclusion,
believe
the
that.
report.
Yeah.
And when I heard this, found this, because it was even on the internet, it was findable. I said, what was it like? He said, I had to listen to a lot of comments
Mm.
to distill a few words. This is like Thomas
Excellent.
Jefferson writing our Declaration of
Excellent.
Independence. I thought that was an utterly brilliant insight
Absolutely.
that that maybe I could assimilate. You know,
Absolutely.
much of what he wanted was to pass on insights, understanding,
Yes.
self-awareness, self-knowledge.
Yeah.
And I agree, very often today, the best of our medical care
Yes.
relives the traumas, does not witness the event, and
Okay.
therefore the trauma gets recreated and recreated and recreated,
Yes.
or you take a pill and you don't care. Now, he
Yes.
said there's another way called fortitude, called perseverance, further success. And
Mhm.
he demonstrated that. You know, as you know, he was at one point quite ill, and then he managed to recover and understand that he could help others
Yes. In many ways.
in many ways.
And what I feel concerned with in this day and age, I don't think we have to worry about these famous people being recorded for history's sake. What I feel with Bhante is that our actions, your devotion, my devotion, our disciplines, maintaining these things, are what will remain for the history of Bhante. And many times, these great servants of truth, which I would call Bhante, um, are lost in the process because their avenue of true communication does not lie in the material world. It's that alchemy that transforms within us, that becomes something more of ourselves by the process of what they sacrifice and give to us. And with the AI, with this sort of mass media, whatever you call it, internet and all those sorts of things, the tendency to lose this critical part of mankind's journey into the universe, into those divine worlds, is lost or trampled underfoot, literally the material foot. And these are the things that Bhante cared about, was maintaining the flow of such truth that we could still have some place to work on our transformation. And because it was so simple in one sense and free, it didn't collect a lot of the glitter dumb, but it did attract many of the serious seekers, which was what he was truly looking for.
Yes, one time when we were in Ukiah, the governor, Jerry Brown, wanted to meet Bhante. And of course, he was more than impressed. Now, he had spent a year in a Zen monastery. He
Oh
was not
yes, that's
unfamiliar
right.
with mindfulness
Yes.
practices, but you could see that he melted in his heart in Bhante's presence.
That's beautiful. I love
Oh,
that story. That's
yeah.
beautiful.
You
Yeah.
know, I've been just fortunate enough to be close enough to have them take my call, but not a politician. Mm-mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take a
You're
pass on
fortunate
that
enough not to be one.
by choice.
Yes.
By
Yes.
choice. My mom was a jazz musician. I like to be on stage and I like the applause, but no.
Yeah.
If you choose a path that is intrinsically seductive and
Oh,
probably
yes.
not
Yes.
mindfully enriching,
Yes.
you'll be stuck.
Yes. Or become very successful and there you're stopped in the spiritual transformation.
That's right. What does
Yes.
success mean? Does it mean
Right.
financial? Does it mean
True.
accolades? Does it
True.
mean becoming part of SAG, the Screen Actors Guild?
Yes. Yeah.
He gave a different perspective and
Oh,
he lived a different perspective.
that's correct. Yes. And that different perspective, I know for me personally, right now at this point in my life, must find its comfort in anonymity,
Mm.
must find its strength and courage through those values. And I feel very fortunate that I have that life preserver, if you will, truly opened up to me.
Life
And
preserver.
always, always make it your own.
Mhm.
Are we breaking up?
I found him available at all times to anyone who
Yes,
was receptive. Now, if you happen to be the
absolutely.
prime minister or the king, that was fine.
Yes. Yeah.
There is in the book this little story. He is the guest of the royal family of Thailand because of who he was. And he notices that the queen mother has a pain in her shoulder and a pain in her knee. Now, of course, he's a monk. He can't touch her, but he asked for a wooden spoon. He touched her in two places, and the pain went away. And they declared a national holiday.
Oh, how
He
beautiful.
came back with 16 hours of continuous video of the sea of humanity coming in front of him saying, "Thank you for taking away the Queen Mother's pain." And I said, "You had to sit there the whole time? You couldn't take a break?" He said, "No, I was an object. I was an icon. I wasn't a person." He had
Yes, an
amazing
object.
insights into the reality of life.
Yes, I
Now,
once had, oh, I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, kind of relating to that, I had a talk with him once when we were in Cressy, California. And basically, we talked about certain paths of what we call initiation. And we had a sort of a personal talk about that, my interest, etc. And he said nothing about anything like that as though he were part of any of that process, but he did say, "What I am, anyone can be," and he
Yes.
believed that with his whole heart. That
Oh,
wasn't
he
just
did. No,
some
I heard him say that several times, more than a
absolutely
few times. And
yes,
that was the point. It was not that he had transcended and was above us. He
exactly.
was still with us and
That's right.
wanted us to have the keys to that kingdom or whatever you'd want to say,
Yes,
because he had earned them, but he
that's
had
right.
acquired them. And he thought everyone should.
And he knew that the future of mankind depends on this quality. It depends on that flexible inner state rather than this brittle material mind, which we are so entrenched in right now. And if anything, I could say Bunty's one fault is that he believed it so much that it many times he had to work on the upset of the things he saw going on around him, the fake gurus. And excuse me, I don't
No,
mean to
no,
say
no, no,
fake,
no. Please
but
expand on this topic because it was very much a part of him.
yes,
He saw others for who they were, not
yes,
what they claimed.
that is correct. And that was his sadness, his grief, his own suffering is that he desired too much for humanity to have it. And that caused his suffering, like the Buddha said, our desire nature. He suffered deeply for what he wanted humanity to become. He did. I feel that. That was a real struggle. And you come to the material world, excuse me, the Western world, our Western civilization is just, we have a number of obstacles that we don't even see when it comes to materiality. He could clearly see these challenges in us and realized, that the struggle of the Western civilization wasn't our spiritual nature, but our materialism that we saw as being so keen and definitive for who we were.
It can absorb us, and then it can seem to be the entire world.
And it can be a tool as well.
Oh, yes. No, no, no. He didn't think that anything was intrinsically bad. He thought it was
Exactly. Thank you.
misused by people,
That's
and
right.
you could
Very
turn anything into opportunity for self-awareness
absolutely.
and self-knowledge.
Yes. The alchemy of everything we are and what we have around us. We think alchemists belong to the scientists, the ones that sat in the rooms and studied the nature of God through these chemical elements. Basically, we as a humanity, from a mystical standpoint, we see our alchemy in our relationship to God and our struggles as we gain insight into who we are. And that's an alchemical process. Our body transforms. We are all alchemists when we are on this path of transformation.
And different seasons of a life provide different opportunities and
Yes,
risks.
yes. So true.
Now,
And
did you
go.
know Bhante when he was in Fresno? Because he was in Fresno for a brief period of time.
No, that was before.
Oh, oh,
That was before Cressy. That
oh,
was
sure.
before
Oh, sure.
Cressy.
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I think I could be wrong. Kip would
No.
know.
Yes, Kip would know.
Yeah.
Now, in Alaska, did you know Joe Davis?
I did not meet Joe. Joe
Oh,
was not on the scene, so to speak, when I was active up there. And
oh,
so I met Bunty in 74,
oh,
1974. And I
wow.
think Joe came on that scene maybe 76. I'm not sure exactly when Joe came on. I knew he was part of things or whatever you want to call it, but I was not living in Anchorage. He was. That's the group that he knew. I lived in a more rural area of Alaska at the time. Still maintained any sort of connection, but not like that, not personal.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay. Uh, there's so many questions, so many insights that I would like you to expand upon.
Well, here's something I love, and I felt it was just a matter of, in retrospect, my grandfather was a missionary and doctor who came to Alaska in the late 1800s. My
Wow.
grandfather and grandmother. My grandmother was a nurse,
Oh, wow.
and they were homeopathic
Oh.
physicians, and he was also a general surgeon.
Hmm.
So he came to Alaska, and that's where my father was born. And then my father became a medical doctor. He went to Stanford and became
Wow.
OBGYN in
Wow.
Alaska, and my mother was a nurse.
Oh,
So
wow.
I have always been interested in medicine, and I embraced natural healing at a very early part of my life, and I've remained committed to that. But I see that passion for healing and the wish to for the relief of pain and suffering for humanity. I see that as so vital in the medical world, which I think is so important when we have someone such as you in the medical world that can see the opportunity for the merging of the minds, basically, to come together. I wouldn't poo poo science in medicine,
Oh, no.
but at the same time, there's such a desperate need to understand this part of us, this essence that continues to live and help heal us, that's within us. If science and that comes together, there's a tremendous potential for self growth, not just healing, but true self discovery. And that's such an important thing with you, Russ. And now I wanted to ask you,
Mm.
how can we get the AMA to recognize the alternate ones? And let's just talk homeopathy and naturopathy. Chiropractic procedures are already accepted. And I think, my goodness, if chiropractic procedures, a chiropractor is accepted into the AMA, why are we not getting somewhere naturopathically, homeopathy,
Mm.
How do we do that? Because that's really, we have these anti this, anti that, anti vaxxers, anti this, that, and the other. I have understanding and embrace that all. But really, our basic problem is getting recognized in an institute such as AMA. I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, the history is very simple. In 1900, there
Right.
were more eclectic and homeopathic physicians than
Yes.
allopathic or
Yes.
osteopathic physicians.
Yes.
Then comes a revolution paid for by Carnegie and Rockefeller.
There you have it.
implemented by a man named Flexner,
Yep.
who put forth a proposal in such a way and was so well funded that the
Interesting.
President of the United States, the Secretary of State, were behind their coup. They had to
It is.
commit a coup.
Good word.
And
Good
what,
word.
what did they do? They said, mentored education is not scientific, it's not standardized. We need major medical centers like Johns Hopkins and Harvard and Stanford. And we need to make sure that they are funded by the nascent pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah.
And then the next step is for the medical boards of every state, starting with Illinois, but extending to the entire country. The medical boards basically took the position, they did take the position, that anything natural is a placebo, that
There you go.
anything homeopathic, which is a very different philosophy of need. Now, Catherine Coulter, who wrote the Personalities of the Remedies, was our family homeopath when she lived in our area.
Oh, wonderful.
Oh, yes, and she was wonderful. And she made the remedy for you by going in the back and succating it and so forth and so on. She didn't really feel that homeopathics were better in commerce. She thought that personal, taking the case, spending the time was important. And the results were unmistakable.
Yes.
And by the way, her husband was a historian of homeopathy and a translator for the Gorbachevs.
For the who?
The Gorbachevs. He made
Oh,
his living translating for Russians who came to the United Nations
oh,
and
interesting. Okay.
the White House. Yes, he was a utterly charming guy, and she was just terrific.
That's wonderful.
And so yes, we have been really blessed to be able to connect with a few people. And I think Bhante did not want gaggles of people around him
No.
just applauding. He wanted a few people to do the work,
Yeah.
get the experience, and then share it again. Did he ever speak to you about his closeness with the Sihanouks or his closeness with the Nehrus?
No, actually, we never. I think about this often, Russ. Bunty and I, his focus on me, his way of working with me, let's put it that way, was not about those things. It was more about the intensive vipassana, the insight,
Mm.
not in terms of meditation. What I talk about is the active, awakened state and
Mm.
the self-revealing that goes on. So we work mainly with my difficulties, if you will, or
Sure.
the peeling away of layers and learning to be his cook or this and that. It was more about what I was learning about myself that was key to our relationship. Many's they were all different. So I know he did speak to quite a few people about those things, but he did not with me.
No. I was asking you because I thought probably not,
Oh,
because his relationship with you was a much more personal, much more intimate, much more
yes,
insightful, and that was important to him.
yes.
He was recognized by the few and revered, but he never boasted. I never heard him
Never,
say, "Well, I did this and that."
never.
If it
Yeah,
was appropriate socially or
yes.
whatever reason, he
Experience,
might,
with
yeah.
experience and
But I'm impressed that for you, he was what he really revered and wanted to pass on.
absolutely. I feel that way. I do feel that way with respect. I feel that. Yes.
So it's been about 20 years since he passed.
Yeah.
We have continued as best we can in his way,
Yes.
including the green light.
Yes.
Um, I would like to probe a little bit more
Sure.
because I feel the vibration that you're transmitting. But I wonder if you can remember a couple of specific anecdotes or experiences that helped you, were epiphanies,
Right.
were insightful for you.
Yes. Through the process under his guidance. Basically, first off, was my enlightenment on the course in India, the full self realization. And that is described in my book. It's better in the book, the description, because it has to do with going to, I totally denied him on the course, but realized something was up, knew that I should be on that course. So what the heck is going on within me? Mind you, we had, for people out there in the world right now, you have a number of tools that you can refer to on that course. And as it was with Bhante, you didn't have a playbook. You were on your own. So I had to dig deep within and ask for guidance from above, et cetera, et cetera. It was at that point, under his spiritual guidance, I was able to see, and I describe it more fully, I was able to see the sort of root substance of what my struggles were all about that seemed to recur throughout my lifetime. So at 24, I was able to go back and see this
Wow.
incredible network of tentacles, if you will, streaming out and coming back to the same source, this root substance. And it was basically creating all my associations and workings with humanity, people in general. It's just who I was. I understood more clearly, very clearly, not more. And that was the big one. And what I like to talk about with that is it was enlightenment of a supreme degree. It lasted until more challenges came and then whatever. But what I liked about that is we didn't speak. He had shunned me by that point. And I went through this great revolution because I experienced, because I knew I was wrong, even though I couldn't figure it out. And afterward, after several weeks or so, we had a meditation. Many of us this was when the whole course sort of erupted, people dropped off, etc. It was just that critical point. I did not know that at the time. Now, in retrospect, this is common. We understand these processes occur in self-revelation. But he held a meditation, and even though he wasn't speaking to us, he spoke to us as a group, said that when you've done something wrong, you need to apologize, basically. And if you can't do it to the teacher safe, do so in your meditation. And we went into meditation. So it was a definite hint. And so in that meditation, I just poured my heart out to him. I explained what had happened to me, what I saw clearly. It was important to not lie, to just be totally out there. And another friend that was on the course, I won't mention her name, but after the meditation, I went out and I said, "Did you apologize?" She goes, "Like crazy." And after that, we were reunited. Bhante embraced us again, etc. And that to me is the key association experience I have with Bhante that, propelled me into everything into my life, just pushed me forward into this long, incredible journey. So that's my great one. I just love
Yeah.
that one.
No, but your experience is surprisingly common among his closest students. That
Yes.
he went through a period where he seemed remote because we were not appreciating the opportunities. And the courses were only 2 weeks.
Right.
And the reason the courses were 2 weeks was because I said to Bhante, "Will you give a brief introduction to Vipassana?" And he said, "Oh, yes, just 6 months."
Right. Yes.
Now, I understood that he was right.
Yes.
But I said, in America, 2 weekends is already a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
But he
That's right.
basically what he said was it takes a few days for you to settle down, then you have an opportunity in for the next few days
Yes.
because the few days before you leave, you're going to be thinking about leaving.
Hmm.
Um, he was a pioneer of socially engaged Buddhism. As you know, he converted Ambedkar, who was an amazing person,
Yes.
who studied many different religions,
Hmm.
but finally came to socially engaged Buddhism as the answer that humanity needs. As you have been saying, if we could, even 5% of people, that's a small percent,
Yes.
embrace his experience, follow his footsteps,
Yes.
I think we could transform the world.
Oh,
I think there would be much less suffering. You know, one of the questions that I ask regularly is whose mother's child should die? Well, a
exactly.
lot of children and a lot of adults are dying.
Yeah.
What can we ourselves do in light of that enormous suffering,
Yes.
given that we're not in charge, but we can at least help the people around us
Right.
to be healthier, to be more aware.
Yes.
And I think it ripples out. So I'm trying for myself to create a personal blue zone. Blue zones are
Oh,
healthy.
yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I have introduced the concept of personal blue zone. You don't have to go
Wonderful.
too far away. How
I
are
love
you
it.
living today such that tomorrow you will be more enriched, more self-aware, more connected to
Yes.
nature, nurture, wholeness, and all of this, from my perspective,
Yes. Yes.
essentially all of it. I had great good fortune with many, many people, but if I, as I have tried to do in the book, if I distill the great opportunities that he selflessly,
Yes.
if I needed for him to be remote or absent, he was remote and absent.
That's right.
And eventually I realized that it was all for the service of those around him.
Yes.
You
It
know,
was all what I realized for the service. It was all the pasanya.
yes,
It was
yes,
all
yes,
that. It is part of who you are. It's not that you must think of this. It's that you observe this and without thought. So
yes, and live it. Be in
you
the
live it.
moment.
It is all living. And it does. Kip said this once, and I love it. And maybe when you talk to Kip, he mentioned once that Bhante said, even a chair has a purpose. Mankind has a purpose. And I like that. I like that because we must realize that this body, like I say, like many say, we are a chemistry set. Right here, we are a human beaker. And within it lies the greatest potential or the worst potential. The greatest being that we transform all these crude elements into something more refined, something more invisible. And that possibility can only occur within this life form. So we must use this physical body like a blue zone. I love that. I've seen the movie or the documentary, and I love that.
Mhm.
And I would say, without ever thinking that's what I'm living, that's what you just defined it as. And we all have our little blue zones. Eventually, we'll all come together and be one big blue zone. And like you said, 5%. I mean, back in the hippie days, I couldn't imagine that it was just 5%. I thought the whole world was enlightened or working towards it. And now it seems to have gotten down to such a narrow corridor that I realized, oh my gosh, I was so naive. It didn't stop me. Thank heavens. My naivety pushed me forward. The fool that I was caused me to keep trying. But you're right. I agree. 5%, 1% maybe,
Yes,
even
yes. It's
1%.
amazing. You know, it's like a catalyst.
Yeah.
If you
Yes.
have the right catalyst, it
That's
can
correct.
change the world.
It can
Now,
blossom.
I did not ask you, were you involved at all with Sherborne or Claymont?
Well, yes, of course I was. I originally was in a group, a study group, or whatever you want to call it, in Alaska. And that is how I met Bhante. We worked to get him up there to show us the meditation. I was going to attend Sherborne fourth year. I met Bhante, who was having a course in India, and I had had a very profound dream several months before I had ever heard of anything like any of this, directing me to the path of color. And so when I found out that Bhante and color meditation, and that he was having a course, it was a 5-month course of intensive meditation, I knew that that was where I was supposed to be. So I didn't go to Sherborne fourth year, which was 78, 79, but I did attend Claymont fourth year.
Oh,
And, oh no, I'm sorry, 74, 75 was fourth year Sherborne.
right.
78, 79 was fourth year Claymont. And I
Claymont.
did attend fourth year Claymont
Mhm.
as well. So yes, I have had, I do know people. Some of the people that were on the course in India had been to Sherborne first, second, and third year. So there was a strong association. Great respect for Mr. Bennett.
Oh, yes, Mr. Bennett,
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
And he, of course, was as close to Bhante as you could be.
Yeah.
But he was
Yes.
himself. He was an engineer. He was very
Yes.
British, but he created Sherborne, which was
Yes, he
a
did.
remarkable accomplishment.
Yes, it truly was. And then Claymont to go on and continue to Claymont, the property, getting that property here in America was very significant. It was a real expression of who Mr. Bennett was, deep within himself, his devotion to hopefully put something down, again, just like Bhante, that could carry forward through many generations.
Claymont, as you know, was originally George Washington's plantation. Just
Yes, something
over,
like that, or the nephew, but I know, yes, something to that effect.
yeah.
It's beautiful piece of property,
Oh, it's a
beautiful.
beautiful property,
Yeah.
magnificent, and really serious students.
Yes. The only problem I would not criticize in any way, but there's a tendency for people to just get fixated on one particular way or another, and that I don't think is the goal of humanity. I think our goal is to
Nor did
unite.
Bhante. Nor did Bhante.
That is exactly
He
correct.
tried. He tried.
That is,
But he spoke
yes.
in a very soft way, but if you listened carefully,
Yes.
a profound way.
That is correct.
But what you say is very true. If you look at the leadership of Claymont, if you look at the whole métier,
Yes.
I don't mean to be critical, but they missed Bhante. They missed him.
They missed the point. They missed the
They
mark.
missed his point. That's right.
They missed the mark on what he, and that's okay, because what I have come to understand and realize through this whole process is that we have this brain, we have this intellect that is very mischievous and greedy, and it must be fed, and it's fed through intellectual processes, and those processes would entail Gurdjieff or Bennett, Mr. Bennett's intellectual knowledge, his database, if you will. And that's important for a lot of people to eat and digest a lot of that material. And thank heavens it was supreme material coming from Bennett. Things that inspired people to search a little more for a greater depth. Now, Bhante represents the heart, and
Right.
the heart is an untapped wilderness in this intellectual world. And so he came at a point when humanity was beginning the process of feeling pretty left out materially. Something more has got to be going on here. So he came at a point where we are just beginning the preparation to understand and receive the heart knowledge. And we're at a very difficult impasse because many people trained in spiritual wisdom or knowledge from the intellectual perspective have become highly refined in that area. However, they are not willing to hear the heartbeat. They're not willing to realize that there's a whole world going on within their body that is very separate from the brain. We struggle even within ourselves to find unity between head and heart. Bhante represents the new age, the age of the heart being released, as Ajahn Mun, the saint that restored the Theravada tradition, said, was actually credited for speaking in such a manner. The release of the heart.
Today in medicine and science, we talk about the central nervous system and we talk about the gut nervous system connected by the vagus nerve.
Yes.
But what we have not discovered
That's correct.
is that everything that characterizes the central and gut nervous system also exists in the cardiorespiratory system.
That is correct. Yes.
And so when we can embrace the three qualities of a brain, analysis, experience, and wisdom.
Yes. I love what you're saying about that. I'm always studying these things because of my interest. I came across a scientific study that has discovered that the heart is developing its own nervous system. And I love that. I think that's an incredible, incredible credential, if you will, for Bhante's work, for the teaching of Vipassana. It's saying, yes, the heart has its own way of knowledge. And as you research the heart, you begin to see that prehistory, we call it pre-fall or pre-Edenic times, it is understood at the earliest point of studying religions that the heart was the seat of the mind. It was actually understood to be the brain. Now,
the Tibetans view the heart as you're describing it, that the heart is the seat of wisdom and experience. And if you have a lot of grief, it may be accumulating behind your heart in the pericardium. But if you're in the moment, not too much in the past or in the future, if you're in the moment, you can be liberated.
Yes, absolutely. That is correct. That's an excellent, that would be what we would say as a Buddhist knowledge, and would relate to perhaps the original teachings of Lord Buddha, and that we would someday say, yes, that's included in Theravada, since we see Theravada as being the oldest form of some of these practices. And that I haven't found anything as directly relating to Vipassana and the heart as I have in the Theravada wisdom, teaching, and discipline. I find that to be profoundly unimpressive and truth. It's like the tiny little orchid that grows underneath all the ferns and things. It's like, oh, there you are. And Theravada seems to have that. Of course, you see, not in criticism at all would I say that. I mean it just in the sense that whatever my rhythms are, whatever, that was where, that is where I gravitate.
So thank you for being you. Thank you for the book you have written. Thank you for sharing your insights and understandings. Thank you for being a student of Bhante.
Oh, yes. And thank you, too. Thank you for everything you've done, and I love your book. I think it's a wonderful read. It's so enjoyable. And yet you come across with some real bits of information that are so valid and substantial. And our hope, our wish is that we can spread this to the world so that we can enter into what the next epoch will bring, and that is the heart wisdom. The heart wisdom is the future. We must get ready for that.
Yes, we must live into that reality.
That is correct. Just like they say in the dinosaurs, one of the theories is that when the atmospheres changed, it flooded and the dinosaurs couldn't keep themselves aloft. And that's how they all drowned, basically, when oxygen was introduced into the elements. And now we go into a new element being introduced through the heart center, finding its strength and expression. And we must all be prepared to be able to stand the process, that leap that we might take. And that's essential, the heart and its flexible nature.
And we may feel some tears. We may feel
Yes.
some
Yes, Russ.
um,
Yes. Suffering.
Resistance, personal resistance.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's okay.
That's right.
He
That's right.
never felt that was a bad thing. He thought that was a good thing, because
Yes.
somehow there was something in you that was opening to the possibility
That's right.
of being more fully alive.
That's true, Russ. Thank you. And that's really quite beautiful. We have to know that, like you said, it's okay.
It is okay.
It's okay. We're all doing it. And like you said at one point when you were talking earlier about humiliation and the struggles, we were in the presence of someone that just sort of ripped those layers off of us, and
Yes.
it stung only for a moment, but it hurt.
No,
We've been there.
but he was not just a representative of Buddhism.
That's right.
He was a universal Buddhist. He knew
That
who
is
he
correct.
was, but he wanted the world to appreciate itself. He didn't,
That's
he
true.
wasn't, Dr. Mishra was a great Sanskrit scholar. And I'll just kind of close with this little story. I was a student of Mishra's for about 5 years, and I bring Bhante to Ananda Ashram in Monroe, New York. Dr. Mishra takes one look at Bhante and says, "Everyone does what he says. I'm retired." No, it was both true and generous, but Mishra
Yes.
was both of those. And Bhante was Bhante. And I'll close with this. This long line of people came in, and Bhante would look at them and talk to them and make a recommendation. And then a young lady comes in and he says, "Everyone out." And so I start to leave because he said, "Everyone out." He says, "No, you stay, the doctor stays."
Okay.
He leans in and very gently says to her, "Could you be how you say pregnant?" Now, she was a yogini. She was dedicated to her spiritual life. I didn't even think she knew how to have sex.
Mm-hmm.
The pregnancy test is not positive for a few days. The test became positive in a few more days.
Mm-hmm.
And when she left, I said to Bhante, "Okay, I give up. What did you see?" And he said, "Did you not see the light in her uterus?"
Oh,
He didn't
that's so neat.
he didn't abuse the privilege, but he saw things that we didn't see. He
Oh,
appreciated things
absolutely.
that we didn't appreciate.
Absolutely.
But his point was, you too can. You don't need me.
Yes. Well, with your training and everything, absolutely, you have that opportunity, and that's a wonderful opportunity.
Oh, it is. It is. You don't become popular, but you can do a quote a world of good, or at least
Yes.
some good for the world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. That's
So
good.
thank you.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you so much for taking the time, and
Oh,
all the best.
a pleasure.
All
A
right.
privilege.
Goodbye.
Ciao.